Okay, this is your second video now over Unit 2 on the foundations of our government. What we've gone through so far in class, and we've done a couple different things here. We've finished up going into how the United States broke away from Britain, formed its early government with the Articles, which we talked about how incredibly weak those were. Then we went through the videos on Shays' Rebellion, which was, to me, one of the bigger parts, which history kind of leaves out, about how the United States moved from that Articles into the Constitution. And without Shays, it might have gone a whole different direction, and we may not be where we are today because of that. Once then we decided to develop the Constitution, it got into the Founding Fathers and the meetings and all of those things that we talked about in class and went through with your or homework assignments and those kinds of things. Now what we're going to finish up with this video is the ending of the Constitution. How did it finally get put together? As you can see here from this slide, the Articles of the Constitution basically is broken up into 7 parts. The preamble, which we went over yesterday, deals with the purpose of the Constitution, and basically those are the 6 what you want to call pillars of the Constitution. Those are the things that hold the whole thing together and puts it into place there. And without those key vital parts of the Constitution, nothing else would matter about it. Then you have Article 1, which we outlined and you did your homework assignment on. We went over it in class. We watched the video on. That is the legislative branch, and that was basically the setting up of the House and Senate and how that came to play. The second article, Article 2, was on the executive branch and how the presidency was put into play. And we also talked about that pretty well. And then the third branch, which really the Founding Fathers didn't put a whole lot into, was the judicial branch, and that was the setting up of the Supreme Court. Article 4 then gets into the relationship between the state and national government, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we get into the last part, your fourth presentation, video presentation on federalism. The fifth one we're going to talk about here now, which is the amending of the Constitution. How exactly do they go about changing the Constitution? We're going to go over that. And then the Article 6 was dealing with supremacy of law and the fact that there is nothing greater than the Constitution. Once the Constitution has a ruling on it from the Supreme Court, whose job it is to interpret the Constitution, then that's it. It doesn't go any further. It doesn't go any higher up. The last thing then, that's what we're going to talk about here first, was how did the Constitution finally get ratified? Well, what happened is when the fighting was taking place here between the two sides, and really what happened was when the Constitution was being written, our Founding Fathers kind of broke off into 2 groups. One group was known as the Federalists. They were supported by Alexander Hamilton, and they believed in the concept of having a very, very powerful government. They knew that we needed to have a very strong central government in order to have this country develop and grow and to become what it is today. On the other side, you had the anti-federalists. They didn't like that term. They later changed it to Jeffersonian Republicans, which then later just gets set to what's known as Republican Party today. But the Jeffersonian Republican or anti-federalist, they were led by Thomas Jefferson. Now, it wasn't like they were against the government. They didn't want to throw out the concepts of democracy, nothing like that. They just wanted the power. That was what the whole issue was about, was power. And the anti-federalists wanted the power more to the states and have state control, state being able to have more of the being in charge than the federal government, than the national government, because they did not feel that the national government would represent the people as well as the states could. So that was the big argument going on. Now, today, you take the words Federalist and Anti-Federalist and you put Republican and Democrat in there, or liberal and conservative, and you got the exact same fighting going on today. The Tea Party, the Republican establishment, the die-hard conservatives there, they believe in stronger state rule, weaker federal. Democrat, liberals, stronger federal power than having than the state control. And that's just essentially the battle that's been going on ever since then. Well, how this finally came to play is that they finally were able to get a resolution done, but basically the Federalists are going to win. And how they're going to do this is because of three men: Hamilton, John Jay, and James Madison. They will go out and they will write 85 essays. They will put these in newspapers all across the early country. The 13 colonies are the main newspapers, which was how everybody got their news at the time. Okay, it wasn't like MSNBC or Fox News is around. So this is how they got their news, was by reading the paper. They did not sign their names to these Federalist papers. They instead were signing alter names to it because they did not want anybody to know what they were doing. Because if it would have got found out that it was them, a lot of people would have went against it then. So they ended up just listing it as Pluberus, which is the founder of the Roman Empire, the Roman Republic, way back in that ancient time period. That's how they would sign it. So they're kind of, anonymous in their doing this. But people read these essays, and what the essays were dealing with was helping to secure the idea, the prospect of a federalist power. We needed a strong national government, and they gave reason after reason after reason. Now, the other side, the anti-federalists, tried to do this as well, and we're going to kind of get more into this a little bit tomorrow. I'll kind of talk about when we watch the video on this. But that was the idea, and the Federalist won. However, one of the other things that does come into play here is that it was dealing with the idea that Madison goes to the Anti-Federalists and says, look, what can I offer you as a compromise to get this thing passed? And basically the Anti-Federalists and Jefferson said, we want a list of guaranteed rights, guaranteed amendments, guaranteed protections of the American people. Things that the government cannot take away from you. Essential rights. Madison said fine, he will write them up. And he does that, and those will become known as the Bill of Rights then down the road. So once all this gets established and gets set up and ideaed, then the states vote on it. 11 of the 13 colonies pass it. September 13th, 1788. Delaware was the first. Eventually all 13 will pass it. New York was chosen as a temporary capital until a permanent one could be found, and Madison does agree to a list of freedoms that all Americans can have, which becomes known as the Bill of Rights then. The other part of the Constitution that was very important was how does it get changed? How do you alter it or change it somehow? Basically, the amendment process is here on this chart. And really, it's a simple process, but it's also extremely difficult. Step one is how an amendment is proposed. Proposed means to be asked. There's two ways that you can try to get an amendment to be sent to the Constitution. One is by 2/3 vote of both houses. 66% of the Senate, 66% of the House, that's 2/3 vote, have to agree to propose an amendment. Or you could get a national convention called by Congress when 2/3, which is 34 of the 50 states, come together and say, we want you guys to get together and propose an amendment. Now, of those ways, of the two ways they're being proposed, really almost every single one of them has come from the top one, the one up here. Okay, this one. We've never really had a national convention called for Congress to get together to propose one. We've had attempts made. Right now there's an attempt being made by people out there who are trying to drive their state legislatures to pass resolutions to deal with the out-of-control spending that's going on with the campaign spending and to reform that and to get that out. There's been attempts made by certain states to deal with abortion issues and get that put into the Constitution and other issues. But traditionally, this is how it's done. To get 66% of the Congress to agree on something, very difficult. We've had over 10,000 proposed amendments to the Constitution every year. In fact, I shouldn't say every, but every 2 years when a new Congress comes in, there are several members of Congress that continually always propose certain amendments to the Constitution all the time. They never go anywhere. They never make it to the next step, but proposing something is not that hard to do. It's this part, the ratification. You got to get 3/4, 38 states to ratify. Now notice, Congress is not over here. Congress has nothing to do with ratification. They only can propose it. It all is down now by the states. Okay, either 3/4 of the states, the state legislatures, have to vote and agree on the amendment, or the states will hold a convention in which 3/4 of the voters in the state will pass the amendment to make it ratified. So let's say that they want to get rid of the marriage ban on that's proposed right now, that we just make it that marriages can be married to anyone. Okay. So that's proposal. It would take 3/4 of the states, 38 of the 50, to pass that. Or you would have to have the state legislature, just the state conventions being held to do that. So it get very difficult to get an amendment put through and passed. Okay, that's why we only have 27 of them, is because it's not like it's a very easy process to do. Okay, that takes us to the end of the second video here, and we're going to get started on your third video, which is going to deal with the principles of the Constitution.